everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk on WIN TV. I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, your host for this important discussion about the upcoming Ward 8 special election to fill the vacant seat on the D.C. City Council. The election will take place on Tuesday, July 15. Mail-in ballots have already been distributed, and early voting begins on July 11. But I am excited to have two incredible guests with me today who will fill in all the gaps, answer all the questions, and prepare the residents of Ward 8 for what I hope will be a great voter turnout. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Louis Davis Jr., who is the State Director of AARP DC, and Sarah Graham, the Director of Communications for the DC Board of Elections. Thank you both for joining me this morning, Louis and Sarah. And I keep saying good morning, and it could be afternoon when this show airs. But good day. How are both of you?
I'm well. Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as many voters know, people age 50 and older play a critical role in shaping our elections. And it's my hope, Louis, that you are going to help to emphasize that AARP, while it does not endorse candidates or political action committees, that your mission is to raise visibility on issues that matter to people age 50 and up. So I'm hoping that you can provide us this morning with some of the issues that AARP DC and its voters guide looked at as it relates to the key issues impacting voters. We'll say over 50, but we know AARP sort of encompasses everybody. So what's on AARP's agenda?
Well, first on our agenda is what you said at the top, and that's making sure that people in Ward 8 know that, one, there is a special election, and it'll be underway any day now, and two, that they have many ways to vote, that my colleague from the Board of Elections will help explain as well, and that our job at AARP is to help make sure they get all that information and that they know where the candidates stand on issues that people 50 and older in the district told us they care most about through surveys we did this year and last. And they can learn what the candidates said who responded by going to aarp.org/Ward8votes. That's all together, aarp.org/Ward8, the number 8 votes. And there you'll see the candidates' responses in their own words. We didn't edit a single consonant or vowel. And if you see a non-response from a candidate, well, that means just that candidate did not respond, but we give every candidate the equal opportunity to do so. 50 plus voters do decide elections increasingly. And we want to make sure that they get out in Ward 8 to vote and make the candidates know what they care most about. And in the 2024 election, voters 50 plus and voters all the way up the chain there made up 52% of the electorate nationally, 52%. Candidates can't afford to overlook the issues that they care about. They historically vote. They vote early. They vote. We used to stay in Chicago. They vote often. Can't say, but by often I mean they vote all the time in every election, midterms, general elections, and the like. And thank you for reminding people that we do not endorse candidates. We don't contribute to any political PACs. That allows us to stay not neutral. We're active in fighting for people 50 plus, but we don't come down on either side, except where the issue benefits people 50 plus or hurts them. That's when we come down on sides of issues. We work across all political lines.
Before we go on, before I come to you, Sarah, Louis, tell us a little bit about AARP DC. You're the state director. You have and I always say chapters, and you always correct me, but they're what do we call them in different parts of the city?
We have chapters across the city, but I represent the state office.
Right.
At AARP, we do treat the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia as states. So in AARP speak, we have a state office in 53 states because we include those three. And that means there's a director like me, there's a volunteer state president who currently is Ronald Hampton, Washingtonian, lifelong Washingtonian. And then we have a cadre of volunteers without whom we could not do our work. We have a small, lean, and mean team of staff. And our job, like that of our colleagues in Colorado and Mississippi, is to represent as best we can the issues impacting people, for me, 40 and older here in the District of Columbia. And that's in transportation, housing, age discrimination, public safety issues, livable community issues, and the like. And we do that working with and sometimes again, the council and the mayor. We work with them when they're doing the right thing in our eyes, and then we work again them, give them a little nudge when we think they need to do better by people 50 and older in the District of Columbia. We also have a lot of fun. So we invite you to visit us at aarp.org/DC, and it'll take you to our state page, and you can learn a lot more about what we do.
Well, that's where I was hoping you could get to, because not only are you all engaged, or is AARP DC engaged in making sure that folks know the issues that impact people like them, but also you have fun, and you keep, like you said, you keep people engaged. And so I think that's a great thing that folks need to know, and that there are chapters, so I guess I was correct about that, basically all across the city. And so people don't have to necessarily travel. They can go right in their own neighborhoods and be a part of a chapter that's engaged with the issues that are important on the ground right there where they are. So, Sarah, I'm going to come to you and talk about your role there at the DC Board of Elections. And I think it's the DC Board of Elections and Ethics. Is that correct?
No, just the DC Board of Elections. Yeah. We got a rebrand a bit ago.
Yes, wonderful. Okay, so glad to hear that, because I'm like, where did that other E come from? All right, so tell us what folks, I know that the mail-in ballots have already been mailed to voters. So folks can begin to mail in their ballots in the Ward 8 special election. But what else should folks be looking for and preparing to do?
I think first, we're really excited to have the special election here in Ward 8. But the first step to be able to vote in this election is to get registered to vote. And while mail and online voter registration has ended, you can still register to vote same day during early voting and on election day. To register to vote in DC, you have to be at least 17 years old, but 18 by the special election. You have to have lived in DC for at least 30 days prior to this election coming up. And you cannot claim voting residence or the right to vote in another state or territory or country. And you can not have been found by a court to be legally incompetent to vote. If you decide to register same day during early voting on election day, you need to bring proof of DC residence. So that can look like an ID, a utility bill, another government document. If you go to dcboe.org, you can see a list of acceptable documents.
I heard you say that mail-in voting has already stopped.
No, voter registration for mail, voter registration by mail and online it ended on June 24th.
Okay. All right. So those people that did get those ballots, and I assume did the Board of Elections send them to all of the Ward 8 registered voters?
Yes. Mail-in ballots started mailing at the beginning of June. And you can track the status of your ballot on our website using a system called Ballot Tracks. And you can find that at dcboe.org. If you have not received your ballot yet, there still is time for it to come. But if you don't receive it by July 11th, you really should make a plan to vote in person. And if you choose to vote using your mail-in ballot, you can get it back to us in one of three ways. You can drop it in a mail ballot drop box. There are 4 for this Ward 8 special election. You can bring it to a vote center during early voting or election day, or you can mail it via USPS. If you choose to mail it via USPS, you need to make sure that it's postmarked by July the 15th, which is election day. And then it has up to 10 days to arrive to us. So it will need to arrive in our office by July 25th.
Sarah, can you give us the locations where those drop boxes are? You said there are 4.
There are 4 in Ward 8, and the best way, we're really encouraging voters to go to our website, dcboe.org, to see those locations.
Okay. Well, we, again, those people 50 plus may not be able to access it online, and they may be, even though they're watching us online, but, can we give them a little help? Can you give us some addresses?
Yes, let me pull them up, and I will read them off to you in 1 minute.
No problem. No problem. In the meantime, Lewis, AARP looked at some issues. I know you mentioned a couple early on: transportation, housing, healthcare, and I'm wondering how it came up with the topics that, particularly in Ward 8, that were most important, what those issues were.
Yeah, thank you for an opportunity to tell the viewers and listeners the questions that are in the voter guide. And these questions were arrived at because AARP regularly surveys its members and non-members. We survey ad nauseum, and so we get information every year from our members and non-members. So this information comes to us from around the District of Columbia. So we didn't anticipate that there'd be a special election in time enough to have done a Ward 8 survey. We survey all district residents, 50 and older, our members especially, every year. So this information came from them. And the topics were transportation, housing, nutrition, and health disparities. In transportation, we hear this from residents across all 8 wards. When WMATA cuts a bus line, it's rare that they cut a bus line in any one place. It's usually as part of some strategy to reduce costs or something or another, and it usually involves bus lines across the city. So in transportation safety for people of all ages and with different abilities, that scored high in the survey. So we examined as well traffic fatalities. We keep in regular touch with Vision Zero, the district's plan to reduce and get rid of entirely, if we can, people being hit and harmed by vehicles. So we asked the candidates, what are your plans to make the district a more livable community for pedestrians and cyclists and motorists alike? In housing, again, that's people are feeling those pressures from Ward 8 to Ward 4, and possibly in Ward 3. People are feeling the pressures of paying for property taxes, even if they own their home outright. And 85% of district residents 45 and older told us that staying in their home was a number one priority for them. So we knew to put that question about housing affordability and ask the candidates what policies they would implement to address that inside of the questionnaire. On nutrition, everyone, whether they're middle income means or low income means, if they're trying to eat well, to live well, then they need access to proper and affordable food. So we asked for plans to increase access to stable, affordable, healthy food options and to get rid of food deserts here in Ward 8. In health disparities, for your viewers, if you don't know, life expectancy hovers somewhere beneath 12 years for persons living east of the Anacostia River than their peers living west of the Anacostia River in a city that's only 68 square miles across. That is dire. And it didn't happen overnight, but we asked the candidates for their plans to address that and shorten that disparity, helping people in Ward 7 and 8, but in this instance, Ward 8 only, to live longer, but live better.
Now, this is, it's really, those are fantastic topics. And having attended a conference recently and looking at this, I don't want to get into politics, but, just the budget issues that we're facing locally and nationally, AARP is going to have a lot of work to do, it seems, to really monitor how these budget decisions are going to impact, particularly residents 50 plus in the District of Columbia. So, this is the thermometer of where we are now, but hopefully in the year or years to come that the temperature doesn't change much, but I know the AARP is probably preparing for some significant changes impacting residents.
Yeah, if I might real quick, we're not only preparing for we are in the fight, and we're prepared to continue to fight. Just 2 days ago, on the 25th, hundreds of our AARP directors and state presidents from every state around the country were here in DC lobbying on Capitol Hill, meeting with members on the House and Senate side, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whatever color party, fighting for Social Security, Medicare, pushing back on Medicaid, threats of cuts to Medicaid. All of those things will impact persons not only living in Ward 8, but the entire District of Columbia. And those downward pressures on the mayor and the council for the budget gaps and holes that they'll have to fill will be felt by all of us. So for your listeners and viewers, please know the AARP is working from Alaska to Maine, from Illinois to Georgia, and including here in DC, to fight to protect Social Security, Medicare, and push back on any cuts to Medicaid. Visit us at aarp.org/DC to learn more and learn how you can get involved. There are ways you can join and send messages to members of Congress, not just our own Eleanor Holmes Norton, who does a dynamite job. She fights for us as hard as she can, given that they've tied her hands without a vote on the House floor. That's no fault of hers, but she's also in the ear of her colleagues across the aisle. And so that's important. You can send a pledge. You can pledge with us and send a message to any member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, telling them to take their hands off of Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare and keep Social Security solvent and strong.
Well, I think that's a rallying call for folks to not only do that, but also to be a part of the Army, that the AARP DC Army that we need, and other organizations that are really fighting to protect the lives of residents in the District of Columbia and across the nation. Sarah, you got that list for us?
I do. Thank you so much for giving me a second to pull it up.
Sure.
So the 4 mail ballot drop boxes, they opened on Friday, June 13th. So they're ready to go, and they'll stay open until 8 p.m. on Election Day. They're located at the Parklands Turner Library, which is 1547 Alabama Avenue Southeast. At the Bellevue William O. Lockridge Library, which is 115 Atlantic Street Southwest. At the Department of Human Services at 2100 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast. And at the Navy Yard, specifically the ballpark Metro entrance. So that's at the southeast corner of M and Half Street Southeast.
Wonderful. I appreciate that. We forget sometimes that Ward 8 has extended across the river now. And so I'm glad that we mentioned that, and that
the AARP DC state office is now in Ward 8.
Yes,
just by a hair.
So is the ballpark. So it's fantastic. So we didn't mention, and I think we should, that there are 4 Democratic candidates on the ballot, and they are Salima Dafu, Mike Austin, Sheila Bunn, and the incumbent Trayon White. I know that 3 of those candidates participated in yours voter guide, Lewis, and we had one as well, and 3 of those candidates participated also.
I can say here which 3, because when viewers go to view the guide, either in the Informer or online at AARP. .org/DC, and Joe will be upset if I don't get that right. It's aarp.org/Ward8votes, the number 8 Ward 8 votes. You'll see the candidates that responded, and that was Salima Dafu, Mike Austin, Sheila Bunn. We did not get a response from candidate Trayon White Sr.
Likewise. So having said that, Sarah, will there be any other names on that ballot? And I know that there are a couple of write-in candidates. How does that work?
Those are the only 4 candidates that have qualified for ballot, what we call around here ballot access. Write-in candidates can always, pursue, write-in candidacy. They just need to, just like regular candidates, file an affirmation of write-in candidacy, and they can do that before the election or after the election as well. And you can see, we actually have a list of folks that have already submitted those affirmation of candidacies on our website.
Wonderful. Well, one of the things we always want to remind people is of how important it is to vote. Whether it's a big general election or a local election, or in this case, a special election, your vote matters. And so I want both of you all, before we close out, if there are any closing remarks that you'd like to make sure that folks actually turn up and turn out on July 15th. Is there anything you would like to say before we close? Louis?
Yeah, I'd like to add what I didn't say earlier. For persons who, and I can't imagine why they would not be reading the Washington Informer, but if you miss our voter guide inside the Washington Informer, there's a print copy that you can find in boxes around the district and around Ward 8 or online. You can find it as well online at aarp.org/Ward 8 votes. But we also sent to the mailboxes to 4,800 Ward 8 residents received a postcard in the mail from my office with a QR code. And on that QR code, people should be familiar with that by now. You just take out your phone and you hold it, make like you're taking a photo for the grandchild. And instead of taking a photo for the grandchild and taking a selfie, you scan that QR code. It will pull up the voter guide, and right there on your phone, you can see all of the candidates' responses. You'll see information that we tag to Board of Elections, so you can learn about where and how to vote as well. All that is inside the voter guide behind that QR code, and we sent that to 4,800 mailboxes. Visit aarp.org/Ward 8 votes to find that same information.
Wonderful. And Sarah?
Yeah, I know we talked a lot about mail-in balloting and dropping off those ballots, but as always, we will have in-person voting. So I want to cover a little bit about what that looks like for this special election. So voters have two options for voting in person. They can do so during early voting, which starts on Friday, July the 11th, and runs through Monday, July 14th. There will be 4 early voting centers, and they're open daily from 8:30 a.m. until 7 p.m. And then on special election day, which is July 15th, there'll be 12 vote centers, and they're open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. As we like to mention, voters can vote at any of the Ward 8 vote centers. So you can do the one closest to your house, or maybe there's one close to your school or work. You can vote in any of them. We really are encouraging people to go ahead and vote early, utilize those mail ballot drop boxes. If you choose to vote on election day, if you were in line at 8 p.m., you'll still be able to vote. We like to emphasize that you can vote at any of the vote center locations. We hear a lot of comments about like, what happened to my voting precinct? We've moved away from that model. So find your closest vote center or mail ballot drop box and, cast your ballot. And then also, I think it's important to note if it's on election day or during early voting, then you need support. You need help. You have accessibility questions or language access questions. So a couple of phone numbers that you can call that day to help you out. You can call our main office line, which is 202-727-2525. So 202-727-2525. And they can offer some general support on that day. And if you have language access resources that you're in need of, or you have accessibility questions, you can reach out to our accessibility line, which is 202-727-5411, or you can use 711 for TTY. And then, as always, we are online 24/7. So dcboe.org has all the questions that you may has all the answers to the questions that you may have. We're excited to welcome you in July. Denise, I think you're on mute.
And I'm giving this long speech here, but thank you, Sarah. But I was going to say, one of the things that we're really proud of in the District of Columbia, and I'm sure Louis can attest to this, with the voter suppression that continues to take place across this country, the District of Columbia makes makes voting accessible for everybody. And so we commend the DC Board of Elections for making sure that no one is locked out or unable to exercise their right to vote in the District of Columbia. That's very, very important. And so what we as residents need to do is to go ahead and do the daggone thing and vote.
I can, Denise, and I can do it from the inside, having been a site coordinator twice now. I did it in 2020 during the pandemic and last year. So I know the great work that the BOE staff do and the volunteers who come out. And, you know, historically, it has been people 50 and older for all my lifetime who make elections happen at the local level. But that began to change with the pandemic when younger people began stepping up because some people 50 and older began pulling back for fear of the pandemic. And that's good because it should never have been a job just for folk 50 and older. So I would encourage any of your viewers of any age, I don't know what I think you have to be at least 17 or 18 maybe to help. Sarah can answer that, but to come out and work alongside folk 50 and older who've been doing this. It is a great civic duty to help people take charge of what's going on in their local communities.
Right, wonderful. And I was about to close, but Louis, you raised another point, and I want Sarah to address it. I know we had an election, a vote in the district by the council that turned down the opportunity for 16-year-olds to vote. But if you're 17, right?
Yes, you can pre-register.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, Sarah.
You actually at 16 can pre-register to vote. But the way it works is when you turn 17, you can register to vote as long as you'll be 18 by the special election. So 17-year-olds that if we're talking about 2026, 17-year-olds can register now if they'll be 18 by the primary, which will happen in June. Or by the general June of 2026, that is, and then in the general in November of 2026.
But suppose, I'm doing a suppose, Sarah. Suppose you are 17 now. You want to vote in the special election. Your birthday is July 14th. Can you still vote?
You can register. You should be able to. You should be able to register same day.
All right. That would be a great birthday present to yourself.
Agreed.
Wonderful. All right.
And to that candidate who you choose to vote for.
It's fantastic. That's right. That's right. Remember that. Well, I want to thank both of you all for joining us today on Let's Talk. I want our viewers, remember you can share this information with your friends and family to ensure that everyone in our community is prepared to make their voices heard. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, let's continue the conversation. Vote July 15th. Thank you.
Greetings. I'm Washington and former managing editor Misha Green with the Let's Talk our Ward 8 special election series. Oh, I'm so excited to be with you all today. And we have the privilege of speaking with someone deeply committed to civic engagement and voter education. And that is Kathryn Collison Ray, past president and Vote411 coordinator for the League of Women Voters DC. Oh, Kathryn, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's entirely my pleasure talking about voting. Happy to do it.
Well, you know, it's an important subject, and I think a great conversation even beyond the Ward 8 special election.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we are really honored again to have you with us. So, you know, this is our Ward 8 special election series, and it's just around the corner. And so, you know, with so many complexities in the election process, it's crucial for voters to have access to information that empowers them to make informed decisions, and not just in Ward 8, like we said, but really across elections. And so briefly tell us a little bit about why you stepped into this role.
Well, in the League of Women Voters, we believe that the only cure for our democracy is to pay attention and participate. And it's not enough to be registered, because here in DC, we have a very large percentage of our population registered. But the point is, we need to make sure they get out and vote, because it's important for us to remember that everyone's vote counts the same. Where you live, everyone gets one vote and it all has the same weight. And we need to make sure that we make wise decisions, because our council members make many decisions that affect our lives. And we need to make sure we pick the people who best represent our interests.
Thank you. And, I love hearing you talk about this with such a passion. Can you tell us a little bit about Vote411 and the work being done for this special election in Ward 8 and some of the unique challenges you see among voters?
Well, first and foremost, we want everyone in DC to know that we have many reasons to be very proud of our electoral process. One is we do everything possible to make it easy for people to vote. We have mail-in ballots, we have drop boxes, we have early voting, we have day of election voting for people who want to cast their ballot on election day. So we have many ways to make it easy to vote, but people need to know for whom to vote. It's very confusing. This election for Ward 8, we have 4 candidates who qualified for the ballot, plus we have a host of people who've signed up to be write-in candidates as well. So what we try to do at the League is provide nonpartisan, not biased, just the facts about the candidates. And we get that information from the candidates themselves. So we send a questionnaire to every candidate that's been certified by the Board of Elections, and we invite them to share their website, share any YouTube videos that they've made. We invite them to answer questions that the League of Women Voters have composed, and they write their answers. We do not edit it. So what you see is a good representation of the candidate and what the candidates have to say for themselves.
And, I'm curious a bit about how you all come up with the questions for the candidates. What are some of the important things that the League of Women Voters find is important for all folks to know? And,
Right.
Again, well, here in Ward 8.
We spend a lot of time crafting our questions. First of all, we try to ask questions that will reveal something about the candidates themselves, like, what are the 2 most important issues facing your ward? What will you do about, and what will you do about it? Like, how are you going to solve this problem? What are you going to propose? So we don't ever try to get like gotcha questions, the kind you might get in a live candidate forum. We ask questions where the candidates can really talk about themselves in a way that the voters can decide, this person I like, this person I don't like. So we have a committee, we go through them, we circulate them to our members, because, we all have we try to make sure that the things are phrased positively. And we added a new question for this Ward 8 one that I really like. I borrowed it from another league. What are your favorite places to go in your ward? I mean, it's just, that might be very revealing. Well, anyway, so the Vote411 is a nationwide program. Leagues everywhere have it, so that you can tell your friends who have elections coming up to use it. The website is just Google Vote411. It'll pop up. You enter your address, and then it'll tell you who's on your ballot, and then you can click on each candidate and read what they have to say for themselves. And I said, we don't edit, we don't make recommendations either. It's just, this is the information, decide for yourself.
Love it.
And the other thing we tried to do always is make sure that the questions are accessible, meaning very clear. I've used straightforward terminology. We try to avoid jargon.
Yes. All really important work that does make me question when you all are sleeping, trying to keep a pulse on all of the important elections and
Well,
candidates.
that's why I got an e-bike, is so I can go places faster.
Very good. Very good choice to get the e-bike for that reason. And of course, I have to say that so that our audience knows, Kathryn even rode her e-bike to make sure we had this interview happen today.
Yeah.
So, we often hear about misinformation and obstacles to voting, especially in underserved communities. What are your thoughts on how we can effectively combat these challenges as a unified front, particularly heading into this Ward 8 election?
Well, what we are hoping that people first know who is eligible to vote in DC. And as I said, we have many reasons to be proud of our city. We don't care in DC whether you have a record. We don't care whether you're currently incarcerated. You can still vote. And this is something a lot of our people don't know, because in many jurisdictions, people who've fulfilled their obligation to society, completed their terms, they're not allowed to vote. But here in DC, we say, we want you back in our community. We want you to become part of our community again. And a good way to do that is to get involved in the electoral process. So if you've been back in DC for 30 days, you can register to vote. You can actually show up at the polls on election day and cast a ballot, even if you haven't registered yet. So that's the first message we want to get out to everyone. DC also has a law that's really in flux right now, so it's kind of tricky about letting non-citizens vote. Non-citizens may vote only in local elections. They may not vote in the federal, but it's currently in the judicial process, so we're not really making any recommendations on that right now. But if you are a citizen, look at our Vote411, figure out who you want to vote for and vote, because it'll make you feel good, be part of the community, and then if you vote, you have a legitimate gripe when the person doesn't do what you want them to do, because we have to pay attention. If they say in Vote411 they're going to do this, this, and this, and they don't do it, you got to hold them accountable. You got to call them on the phone. You got to show up at their office in the district building and the John Wilson building and say, hey, I want you to represent me. I voted for you.
Absolutely.
As far as misinformation, just rely on, the informer is going to give you good information. You guys do just wonderful work. The League of Women Voters, we're nonpartisan. I saw that the AARP has a voter guide for this election, and that's online too. So try to seek out reputable, nonpartisan people that don't already have a point of view. Like, I'm not trying to talk to you about who to vote for here. That's not my job. I just want to tell you how you can vote, why it's important, and I want to make sure that I say this. We have a brief amount of time. Your vote matters. Every single person's vote matters. If you're listening to this broadcast, you probably already know that, but your friends need to know that. They'll say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who my council member is. It does matter. And if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying so hard to keep you from voting. Just keep that in mind. There's voter suppression going on everywhere, not DC, but it's because people's vote do matter. The person who gets the most votes wins. Not the person who spent the most money, not the person who got the most celebrity endorsements. No, it's the person who gets the most votes. So your vote really matters.
In the famous phrase here, that was a mic drop moment, Kathryn. Absolutely. our votes do matter. Every vote matters. As we wrap, I have to ask you, and this is sort of a combined question, but how do you see a world where all Ward 8 voters do get out there and make their voices heard on July 3rd and beyond, or excuse me, on July 15th and beyond? We're here today broadcasting on July 3rd. And then tell us a little bit about what you hope for the future of voting here in DC. I know that's a hard one.
Okay. Democracy is predicated on an educated electorate. So it's really important that we work with our Board of Education members, and you have good ones from Ward 8, and make sure that our children understand that they, from a young age, that it matters and that their voice matters and that they have a right and a responsibility, not just a right, a responsibility to hold the politicians accountable. And I would see a time when people stand up for what's right and what they need. And our system of democracy is so fragile. And we're seeing that now, how very fragile it is. So we have to start young and continue. Our seniors are the best. Our senior citizens, they vote, they understand. But we got to make sure everybody does. And everybody has to pick up the banner, because even if you don't like any of the candidates, and I hear that a lot too, well, I just don't like any of them. What you do is you figure out what percentage of that person you agree with. And you say, this person, oh, I only agree with 5% of that person. Read this one, oh, but this one, I only agree 1%. So I'm going to vote for the person that was the 5%, even though that person doesn't represent me exactly. You want to find the person that represents you the best.
Thank you, Kathryn. Oh, I am so inspired for all of us to go out and, as your scarf says, vote. Thank you for empowering everyone to know how they can get out and vote, and all the work that you do with League of Women Voters DC and Vote411. Again, everybody, you all can vote. Early voting starts July 11th and ends the 14th. And of course, the special election is on July 15th. You can get all the information you need at League of Women Voters, or right under me, you see vote411.org. Thank you so much for being with us again, Kathryn. We really appreciate
your
it.
vote matters. Every person, it's all equal. Everybody's vote counts once. Make sure yours is there.
Oh, thank you. I am fired up. Thank you, Kathryn.
Great. My pleasure.
Peace and blessings, Washington and former family. My name is Sam P.K. Collins, staff writer who covers the D.C. Council, education, and other issues of significance to our readers. On July 15th, Ward 8 constituents will have a chance to elect their next council member. This council member will carry out the rest of expelled D.C. Council member Trayon White's term, which ends in 2029. We have 4 candidates coming up to the plate: Salima Dofo, Mike Austin, Sheila Bunn, and former council member Trayon White. Salima Dofo, if elected, plans to build on his experience as an advisory neighborhood commissioner and a grassroots organizer to organize Ward 8 residents around issues of significance to them. He says that he plans to include every member of the ward, all constituencies, and unite east and west of the Anacostia River in advancing goals that takes Ward 8 to the next level. Mike Austin, a former legislative director, a former agency employee, and someone who is an attorney, if elected, plans to use his legislative know-how to fight for Ward 8 investments and to bring the ward to the next level. He touts his experience as a legislative director as someone who can dig into the weeds of legislation and address budgetary concerns while also engaging residents. Next up to the plate, we have Ms. Sheila Bunn. Sheila Bunn, who carries 16 years of federal government experience, specifically as a staff member in Delegate Eleanor Holmes' office, as well as 8 years as a chief of staff for former council member and DC Mayor Vincent C. Gray. She says the combination of federal and local experience and her high rapport with the DC Council puts her in the best position to represent Ward 8 and help Ward 8 residents weather the storm of a congressional Republican Congress and a White House that is hell-bent on limiting DC home rule. Last but not least, we have former DC Councilmember Trayon White, who announced his candidacy at the end of Ramadan, telling Ward 8 residents that despite his allegations of bribery, he is best suited to take Ward 8 to the next level and to continue the advocacy that has made him so popular among the grassroots. Now, for your viewing enjoyment, we have a short video that features most of the candidates. Unfortunately, we've made at least 2 attempts to interview former Councilmember Trayon White, none of which he returned to immediately. We're still holding our hope. Nonetheless, we hope that you enjoy this video and you find some value in it as you make your choice for the next Ward 8 council member. Peace.
We talked about this earlier. I think on camera is a better feel. Right. On Monday, you spoke about your grassroots organizing experience. If you could just talk to me about the parallels between that and civic engagement.
Well, honestly, I believe that they're one and the same. The goal is to make the community better. So whether it's consistently knocking on doors, dealing with issues of police brutality or food access, or whether it's around the budget, all of these issues impact us, and we want to see the community be better. And so, grassroots is just an approach to trying to make the community better. Some people can just throw money at an issue. Grassroots folks tend to knock on doors. They're out in the streets. They're rallying people. They do a lot more work on the ground level. So to me, I've been someone who really appreciates the boots on the ground type of approach. It gives you a chance to actually build relationships, to talk to people, and to see from an intimate level what challenges people are going through, but also what successes that we have as a community. I think we focus a lot on what the problems are, but I also say, hey, if we got something that's going well, let's figure out how we can expand on that and how we can duplicate it and bring it to other communities and other neighborhoods. So to me, having had experience in being a grassroots organizer, it gives you the chance to build those relationships, to talk to people and to see what they're going through, so that when you're crafting policy, when you're putting together the budget, you keep those people in mind, because those are the people who these budgets will impact. These are the people who those policies will impact.
I would hope to bring and tie in policies that we're trying to do and how they can actually benefit residents to move those forward. And that's, again, I think the difference between me and some of the other candidates is that I want to sit down and go through what other cities are doing, what other states are doing, and figure out, one, can I pull some of that here? Two, making sure I'm going through the details of what we have here in our budget to make sure that our schools and our principals are telling me what their budgets are. Okay, well, I need, capital improvement for this classroom, or, this field needs, this basketball court, or this classroom, hallways, whatever it might be. I need some more staff in this area, in addition to, well, let's get into the detail. Do you have a full-time nurse, full-time social workers, full-time, are we increasing the capacity for like a Far Southeast collaborative to do trauma-informed care therapy with our, school full-time guidance counselors that we have? I mean, I know at some of the schools in particular, that do have guidance counselors and social workers, they're well beyond the recommended norms for staffing capacity. So that even if they're there, they're supposed to have, one social worker per 200 kids. I've heard from social workers, who were at the schools and live in the area, man, I have 400 kids. So we talk about the quality of the services they can provide. They have 400 students they have to deal with on a daily basis who may be dealing with, traumatic issues at home, traumatic issues at school, bullying, whatever it might be, self-identity issues. They can't give the level of care they want to do because stretched to beyond capacity. And so I want to make sure that we're doubling down on some of these key areas that I think our students need an outlet, and then we make sure that we're giving them, strong reading outcomes. But really, all of that comes from and will stem from the budget and how we fund these initiatives and priorities, and make sure I'm being accessible to, our community as well.
Affordable housing, economic development, and food sovereignty and education counts among your...
And public safety.
Public safety, definitely. They count among your priorities.
Yes.
So coming into office, which one, if you could pick one, would you focus on most immediately, and how would you plan on, going about tackling that?
Most immediately, I don't know if I can pick one.
No problem.
I would think public safety for sure, because I want to make sure that our community not just feels safe, but is safe. I think part of that is making sure that our Metropolitan Police Department is shored up in terms of staffing so that they have the right number of officers, whatever that number is, so that we can for sure see officers walking the beat. That is what I've heard the most as I've been talking to neighbors across the ward. They want to see presence in our neighborhoods, not just sitting in cars, but making sure that officers are making connections with business owners and residents. The third thing I probably want to focus on is making sure that we are connecting both sides of Ward 8. As you know, Navy Yard is now part of Ward 8, and I've heard that they don't feel included on this side of Ward 8. So doing things to make sure that I'm present in all of our neighborhoods, and I want to make sure that we are focused on our students. We need to listen to our young people. As electeds, as community leaders, we oftentimes prescribe this is what needs to be done to solve a problem for a young person, but we haven't said to them, Sam, how can we help you? What do you need to feel successful? What is going to make you want to go to school and not skip school? So I think that is the starting point for me, is having those conversations.
Hi, I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, your host of Let's Talk on WIN TV. We're taking a short summer break from July 8th through September 5th, but don't worry, we'll be revisiting some of our most talked about episodes during this time. We'll be back in September with conversations, new guests, and more of the stories that matter most to our community. And in the meantime, we ask you to stay connected with us on social media and catch up on any episodes you might have missed on our YouTube channel. We want you to sign up also for WIN Daily, our daily newsletter that brings you the latest news you can use by visiting us at WashingtonInformer.com. And while there, we hope that your heart will lead you and that you will decide to support our local journalism by donating to the Washington Informer. We would surely appreciate it. So thanks again for your continued support. Have an enjoyable and safe summer, and we'll see you back here in September.
Where do you come to get all you